met him when he was 12 at Sammy's house when he was about 12 years old. And I remember at the Academy Awards hearing Michael when he was little sing Ben, the love story about the rat.
Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones created one of the most legendary musical collaborations, Thriller, the best-selling album of all time. But behind the music, rumors about their relationship have persisted for decades. Their artistic differences have been public, but could there have been deeper secrets that caused their rift? There has also been speculation about Quincy Jones's sexuality for years, and at the age of 91, he has finally come clean. What is the truth? Watch the video to find out. Do you like the character Quincy Jones? Comment A below if the answer is yes. Before we dive into the story, we need to look at Quincy Jones' life and his relationship with Michael Jackson, starting with Quincy Jones' childhood story and his path to becoming a legend. Quincy Jones' early life. Although Quincy Jones was born in Chicago, Illinois, on March 14, 1933, he spent most of his childhood in Seattle, Washington. During his junior year of high school, he began his studies on the trumpet, and when he was 12 years old, he joined a gospel quartet. Berklee College of Music, located in Boston, Massachusetts, was the institution where he continued his musical study. During his time there, he was allowed to tour with Lionel Hampton's band, where he played trumpet, arranged music, and occasionally played piano. When he went to New York in 1951, intending to pursue a music career, he immediately established a reputation for himself as an arranger. By the middle of the 1950s, he was already arranging and recording music for a wide range of musicians, including Sarah Vaughan, Ray Charles, Count Basie, Duke Ellington, and Dinah Washington, among others. By the year 1956, Quincy Jones was already playing the trumpet and working as the music director for the Dizzy Gillespie Band when they were on tour in South America and the Middle East. This tour was funded by the United States Department of State. Immediately upon his return to his hometown, he began recording his debut album for ABC Paramount Records as a band leader. The year 1957 saw Quincy's relocation to Paris, where he proceeded to study music composition with renowned instructors. In addition, he was employed by Berklee Discs, which is the French distributor of Mercury Records, in the capacity of music director. After completing his duties as the musical director for the jazz musical Free and Easy by Harold Arlen, Quincy went on the road once more. Paris served as the final stop of the European tour in February of 1960. Through the collaboration of musicians from the show, he established his very own big band, which included 18 performers and their families. During their performances in Europe and the United States, they were met with ecstatic audiences and won acclaim from critics worldwide. Unfortunately, the revenues from the concerts were not sufficient to finance such a big ensemble of musicians, and the band finally disbanded, putting Quincy in a significant amount of debt. Quincy Jones began his career in New York City as the music director for Mercury Records after receiving a personal loan from Irving Green, the head of Mercury Records, to assist him with his financial difficulties before his arrival there. It was in 1964 that he was appointed to the position of Vice President of Mercury Records, making him the first African American to occupy such an administrative position in a record company that was controlled by white people. Over the same year, Quincy decided to investigate cinema soundtracks, a kind of music that had hitherto been mostly inaccessible to black musicians. Sidney Lumet, the director of The Pawnbroker, extended an invitation to him to create the score for the film. Quincy Jones left Mercury Records and relocated to Los Angeles after the completion of The Pawnbroker, which was a huge hit. Because he composed the score for the film The Slender Thread, which starred Sidney Poitier, he became a composer who was in high demand. Over the subsequent 5 years, he composed music for several films, some of which include Walk, Don't Run, In the Heat of the Night, A Dandy in Aspic, The Lost Man, Cactus Flower, and The Getaway. He has created music for a total of 33 major motion movies to this day. In addition, he composed the theme music for several other television series, such as Ironside, which was the first television show to include a theme tune that was composed using a synthesizer, Sanford and Son, and The Bill Cosby Show. His involvement in social engagement spanned the decades of the 1960s and 1970s as well. The mission of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Operation Breadbasket was to encourage economic growth in inner cities and he was a staunch supporter of the initiative. Quincy was on the board of the group People United to Save Humanity, PUSH, which was founded by Reverend Jesse Jackson after the passing of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He had not given up on his career as a recording artist, even though he was a film composer, activist, and television producer. From 1969 to 1981, he made a string of albums that were so successful that they were awarded Grammys. These albums included a combination of sophisticated jazz, R&B rhythms, and famous vocalists. The albums Walker in Space, Gula Materi, Smack Waterjack, and Indada were among those that were featured in this collection. You've Got It Bad, Girl was the song that marked his first appearance as a performer, and it was released in 1973. Its follow-up, Body Heat, sold over 1 million copies and stayed in the top 5 on the charts for 6 months. This incredible success nearly ended in August 1974. What is this event? How does it affect Quincy's psyche? And what will his career path be like next? Let's find out. Life-threatening event. A life-threatening cerebral aneurysm, which occurs when blood vessels in the brain burst, was the condition that Quincy Jones was experiencing at the time. Following 2 significant surgical procedures and a period of recuperation lasting 6 months, he went back to work with a renewed commitment. Mellow Madness, I Heard That, and The Dude were the albums that he released to fulfill the remaining obligations of his contract with A&M Records as a performer. On the other hand, fresh difficulties were just around the bend. Following a fruitful series of collaborations with Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones made his debut as a director in 1985 when he was a co-producer on Steven Spielberg's adaptation of Alice Walker's novel The Color Purple. The movie was nominated for 11 Academy Awards and was responsible for introducing Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah Winfrey to the public for the first time. A concert titled An American Reunion was planned by Quincy Jones and David Salzman in 1993 as a way to commemorate the inauguration of President Bill Clinton. Following this occasion, they came together to establish a company that they dubbed Quincy Jones/David Salzman Entertainment QDE. Within this cooperation, Time Warner Incorporated was also involved. Quincy is the co-chief executive officer and chairman of the firm, which specializes in the production of multimedia programs for a variety of technologies, including television and different forms of film. QDE is also responsible for the publication of Vibe magazine and the production of the well-known NBC sitcom The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Quincy is the chairman and chief executive officer of Quest Broadcasting, which is one of the largest minority-owned broadcasting enterprises in the United States. At the same time, he is the proprietor of his record label, which is called Quest Records. Back on the Block and Q's Juke Joint were 2 of the albums that he proceeded to make to become successful during the decade of the 1990s. Quincy Jones holds the record for the most Grammy nominations in the history of the award, with a total of 80 nominations and 28 wins. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences has honored him with the Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award, as well as an Emmy Award, 7 nominations for the Academy Award, and 7 nominations for the Academy Award. Both his life and his career were highlighted in the film Listen Up, The Lives of Quincy Jones, which was released by Warner Brothers in the year 1990. In the year 2001, he released the book titled Q, The Autobiography of Quincy Jones. A wonderfully designed book that reflects on his life and work, The Complete Quincy Jones, My Journey and Passions, was published by him in the year 2008. It was 2 years later when he released his first new album in 15 years, which was titled Soul Bossa Nostra. The album had an all-star roster of modern pop, R&B, and hip-hop singers, and Quincy referred to it as a family celebration. He was honored with induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in the year 2013. The disagreement that Michael Jackson had with Quincy Jones. While Michael and Quincy may have been responsible for some of the most financially successful music in the history of pop music, their collaboration was not without its share of difficulties. What happened between these 2 legends? The reason for their different artistic directions has been given. But what else is hidden behind it? Let's continue watching. Despite their incredible achievements, the 2 often clashed. Conflicts between Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones. The year 1978 marked the beginning of their partnership, which began on the set of The Wiz. Together, they were instrumental in shaping Michael Jackson's signature sound throughout the 1980s. Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad were just a few of the albums that Jackson released during this decade that helped him dominate the music landscape. However, after a decade of success, they unexpectedly halted their partnership, and they started to separate themselves from one another. What caused this abrupt and irreversible breakup as a result? Both Michael and Quincy had a tight working connection when they were working together on the recording of Off the Wall and Thriller. Their artistic differences appeared to be the driving force behind their ability to create innovative music. In the recording studio, there was a dynamic of push and pull, with Michael persistently pushing for more contemporary sounds and Quincy leaning toward more conventional techniques. During the early days of their collaboration, it has been asserted that Quincy Jones had a more authoritarian and less collaborative approach to their work. This dynamic is demonstrated by a notable occurrence that occurred during the recording sessions for the Thriller album. According to the testimony of a witness, upon entering the studio, all of the attention was concentrated on the glass window. Quincy Jones was seen kicking what seemed to be a pile of rags that was lying on the floor. He was doing this violently from behind the glass. With a curse, Quincy ordered everyone to be silent and stated that there should be no squeaks. It turned out that the pile of rags was Michael Jackson, who had been contributing his distinctive whoops, clicks, and squeaks to a new song that they were recording under the name of Billie Jean. Despite this, Quincy was determined to strip the track down, and after spending hours attempting to convince Michael to follow his path, he became increasingly irritated. The tension reached a point where Jones lost his cool and retaliated violently at Jackson. Following this heated incident, Michael cooperated with Quincy's directions, and Billie Jean went on to become the big success that we are familiar with today. The tensions between Quincy and Michael only increased as time went on, even though Thriller was an enormous hit and received widespread acclaim after its debut. The mounting demand to appropriately allocate credit heightened the strain that was already being placed on their relationship as the album rose to become the record with the highest sales total in the history of the world. By the year 1984, according to the allegations, Michael Jackson took matters into his own hands by addressing Grammy officials after the album attained unprecedented success, becoming the record with the highest number of sales in the history of the music industry. Reportedly, he requested that any producer awards for which Quincy Jones was nominated should be given to him directly rather than Quincy, even though Quincy was recognized as the album's producer alongside Michael in the liner notes. Bob Jones, who was Michael's publicist before he passed away, claimed in his biography from 2005 that the King used a lot of pressure to prevent Quincy from receiving the Grammy. In no way, shape, or form did he wish to cooperate with Quincy Jones or any other individual in the spotlight. Despite this, Quincy and Michael were finally awarded the prize together. Nonetheless, the incident left a breach that would remain between them from this point forward. It seemed inconceivable that they would have decided not to continue working together given the great amount of success that they had just attained. Luckily, despite their differences, the powerful duo decided to work together again on a follow-up to Thriller. How explosive will this comeback be? And will their relationship improve from here? Or will disagreements and egos cause them more tension? The answer will be revealed now. The return of cooperation. The soaring success of Thriller lifted the stakes for Jackson's record to a level that was practically impossible to achieve without failure. Michael was under a great deal of pressure to continue to uphold the role of pop icon that Thriller had established, and to demonstrate that the success of the album was not only a coincidence. As a songwriter, producer, and solo singer, he was resolute in his pursuit to dispel any uncertainties that may have existed regarding his capabilities. The anticipation that CBS and the whole entertainment world had for Jackson to provide a sequel to Thriller increased, and Michael Jackson also put a significant amount of pressure on himself to make the sequel. He went so far as to write his objective down on the mirror in his bathroom, to sell 100 million copies of his upcoming record. He needed hits to do this, and as a result, he had to collaborate with Jones. To realize Jackson's commercial vision, Quincy's meticulous selection of music, sequencing, and his ability to bring everyone together were all essential components. The relationship between them, on the other hand, got increasingly tense while they worked on the new album, and tensions continued to rise throughout the whole process of recording the album. In 1987, Quincy made arrangements for Prince to work with Michael on the song Bad. These arrangements were made. Quincy was someone who Michael looked up to the same way that he looked up to Barry Gordy, the creator of Motown Records, who had signed the Jackson 5 to Motown Records in 1968. As soon as Quincy was successful in securing the Prince's consent to the partnership, Michael felt enthusiastic about the idea because of the promise that Quincy had made. What Michael didn't know, however, was that Quincy had agreed to pay Prince top dollar for a song that many believed should have belonged to Michael himself. This further strained the relationship between Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones. Will this musical project be successful? Will they be able to resolve their differences? Let's see. Tensions escalate. Even though it is still unknown who terminated the cooperation, it was eventually unsuccessful. On the other hand, a member of the family disclosed that Michael was enraged when Prince publicly highlighted the unsuccessful partnership and blamed Quincy for engaging him with Prince in the first place. As time went on, it became more and more obvious that Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones were having recurrent conflicts over the musical path that Michael should pursue. While the pair had controlled the music market with Off the Wall and Thriller, tensions began to appear during the production of Bad. As Jackson himself recognized in his book, Moonwalk, he said that this friction was a result of the fact that the duo had dominated the music industry. Jackson began to be concerned that Jones might not be aware of the new developments that were occurring in the landscape of the music industry. Michael was tasked with incorporating hip-hop elements onto the Bad album, as Quincy had requested. After giving this some thought, Jones stated, however, Michael confided in his manager, Frank DeLeo, expressing doubts about Quincy's grasp of the current market. Ironically, this occurred immediately before the advent of groups like NWA, which in turn suggests that Jones, who was 54 years old at the time, may have been more in tune with the future of music than Jackson, who was 28 years old. When all was said and done, the project that Michael and Quincy worked on together would be the final one. Bad. Jackson began receiving advice from music business entrepreneur David Geffen after Bad reached its pinnacle, and Geffen assisted Jackson in preparing for forthcoming contract discussions with Sony. According to reports, Geffen's influence resulted in the termination of Jackson's attorney, John Branca, as well as his manager, Frank DeLeo, and eventually Quincy Jones. According to Jones, important members of Michael's inner circle were reportedly whispering to him that Quincy was receiving an excessive amount of credit for their triumphs. Even though Quincy's production had given Michael so much success over 3 albums, it was becoming increasingly apparent that Bad was not as musically revolutionary as the work that was being created by other contemporary artists such as Babyface, L.A. Reid, or Teddy Riley. Jackson saw that he required a change, and as the 1990s drew near, he endeavored to give himself a new identity. It was clear to him that he would not be able to find this kind of reinvention with Quincy Jones, his long-standing partner. Jones, on the other hand, was erroneously accused by someone for the fact that Bad did not surpass Thriller in terms of sales and plaudits. The tension between them increased after Jackson departed the 1988 Grammy Awards without taking home any awards. This was something that Jones subsequently remarked on in an interview with the Financial Times in the year 2012, where he stated that he believed I was getting too old for the company, because Bad didn't sell 100 million copies. It is impossible to become used to 50 or 60 million albums, I told Michael. Over 3 more years, Jones ultimately decided that he did not want to continue working on a single album. Even though Bad was a successful film, he believed that it had taken too much time to finish. Following Jackson's departure from Jones, none of his following albums would be able to attain the same degree of success as the albums they had released together earlier. Several factors may be linked to the fall in the quality of Michael Jackson's later albums in comparison to his albums Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. These factors include more than simply the controversy that surrounded him up until he died in 2009. These latter albums suffered from having several producers rather than a united vision, which resulted in a lack of discipline and consistency throughout the record, which was absent in his earlier efforts. Even though Quincy Jones had a big part in the formation of Michael Jackson's trademark sound, he minimized his impact by asserting that it had nothing to do with any one particular individual. That is the result of the two of us working together. On the other hand, the disjointed production of albums such as Dangerous, Blood on the Dance Floor, and Invincible may have been considered a contributing factor to the album's flaws. Quincy Jones has been engaged in continuing disputes with Sony Music since Michael Jackson's passing in 2009. These disagreements include royalties that Jones claims are still owed to him for the work that he and Michael Jackson did together, work that Sony has benefited from to a significant degree. In recent years, Jones has also been more outspoken about his relationship with Jackson, including criticisms of the pop star's originality. What did Quincy Jones reveal? Are these the things we've been waiting for confirmation of? Let's see what Quincy Jones revealed about Michael Jackson and their relationship. Quincy Jones's comments on Michael Jackson. Jones stated, "I hate to get into this publicly, but Michael stole a lot of stuff." In an interview that took place in 2018 with Vulture, numerous tunes were stolen by him. States of Independence by Donna Summer and Billie Jean are two examples. You can't fool the notes, can you? One of Jackson's old mentors and long-standing collaborators described him as being as Machiavellian as it gets. Jones also disclosed his concerns over Jackson's issues, including his altering look and the plastic surgery he had undergone. Jones recalled how Michael always justified the plastic surgery by stating that it was due to a medical problem. "Man, I used to kill him about the plastic surgery," Jones added before referring to Michael. Jones claims that Jackson suffered from deep-seated anxieties regarding his appearance. These fears were a direct result of the abuse and severe criticism that he experienced from his father, who conveyed to him that he was unattractive. Regarding the various charges that have been made against Jackson, Quincy Jones has constantly refrained from commenting or defending the icon of the pop music industry. During these conflicts, he has instead created a space between himself and Jackson for himself. All references to Michael Jackson were deleted from the promotional material for Quincy Jones's concert in 2019, following the publication of the documentary Leaving Neverland, which was directed by Dan Reed. The event was relaunched as Quincy Jones presents soundtracks of the 1980s, which includes defining albums and memorable songs. Initially, the event was described as a night of Michael Jackson's most iconic albums, with a live symphony orchestra performing Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. Although Jackson's music was still played, the emphasis moved from glorifying Jackson in particular to showcasing the wider influence that music from that era had on society as a whole. What about the rumors that Quincy is gay? Do you think it's true? No need to speculate anymore, Quincy has confirmed it. Quincy Jones finally confirms the rumors. Now, if you thought the entertainment business was crazy in the last few years, the 90s could have been much worse. Rapper and educator Professor Griff was a notable person who explained the dynamics of same-sex relationships at the time, claiming, "The thing that raised some eyebrows with people is that I dropped the information about Quincy Jones." He made daring assertions regarding Quincy Jones' history in his 2015 exposé. This individual was among those accountable. Several companies, including Warner Brothers, funded his magazine. X Rings was established in Hollywood by him. Rumor has it that Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones were more than simply colleagues. They were romantically involved. Although they made legendary music together, their individual lives may have hastened their breakup. "I think that's a lovely thing," Michael said in response to an interview question regarding whether or not it's okay for a 12-year-old to share a bed with an older person. Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones first crossed paths when he was a little boy, and Quincy recalled their first meeting as the king of pop. According to him, Michael dropped by his place. "I first met him at Sammy's house when he was 12 years old." Michael sang Ben, a love song about a rat, at the Academy Awards when he was a tiny boy. Their chance encounter began a fruitful collaboration that resulted in several landmark albums. Quincy Jones has produced for a who's who of musical greats. He's sometimes called the Black Godfather of the business. Over the years, his tangled personal life has generated a lot of internet discussion. Quincy recently discussed his connection with Michael Jackson, highlighting how they initially crossed paths before Michael was even a teenager. In an interview for The Hollywood Reporter's New Icon series, the 91-year-old producer and musician offered these observations. Michael Jackson was just 12 years old when he met Quincy Jones. He was at Sammy Davis Jr.'s house. Jones reminisced, "He told me, 'I need you to help me locate a producer,' when we chose to develop The Wiz. My debut solo album is almost set to be recorded." The 28-time Grammy winner producer remarked that the youthful Jackson has an extraordinary depth of knowledge on the history of music, having studied artists such as Gene Kelly, James Brown, Fred Astaire, and even Elvis Presley. They may have been more involved than they were due to their early partnership. An adult man's want to work with a youngster raises questions. Despite this, Michael and Quincy became an unbeatable combo in show business. Unfortunately, their relationship deteriorated while they were enjoying their achievements. Some say the rift was over something more personal, while others insist it was entirely business-related. Michael allegedly stole from Quincy and bilked him out of royalties, according to Quincy's claims. Still, some think their strained relationship was the source of all these problems. Despite the lack of official accusations from Michael's family, Quincy's past and the suspicions around him lend credence to the idea that he may have engaged in inappropriate activity with a young Michael. Long before figures like P. Diddy emerged, there were rumors that Quincy Jones used his influence to pressure young men into engaging in unofficial relationships in exchange for fame in Hollywood. Are these shocking rumors true? Is there any evidence to prove that these rumors are true? Let's take a look and think about it. Rumors of Quincy Jones using his influence to exert pressure. Allegedly spending a lot of time together after the success of their first album, Quincy and Michael even lay on the floor at midnight while recording. Many have spoken out against Quincy's alleged relationships with younger men, particularly Tupac Shakur and Will Smith. Quincy has been accused of inappropriate actions towards each of them, and the stories continue to circulate. For reasons only someone with Quincy's influence could explain, an interview from the 90s in which Tupac claimed Quincy asked him if he could have a personal relationship with him has mysteriously disappeared from the internet. However, rapper and Tupac's associate Napoleon publicly refuted these claims. He denied any connection between Tupac and Quincy, stating that the suspicions surrounding Pac were completely unfounded. Some have theorized that Quincy Jones acted as a gatekeeper in the black music industry, suggesting that all the big names likely began their careers by hosting parties for him. Because of the close relationship that developed between Tupac and Quincy throughout his career, this theory began to gain traction. Additionally, it is speculated that Quincy may have taken advantage of the situation to seek a romantic relationship with Tupac. Tupac had considered signing with Quincy's record label instead of Death Row Records just before he died, which serves as a testament to the strong bond they shared. In an episode of Fat Joe's Instagram series, Keisha Cole shared a heartfelt story about the horrific night Tupac died, revealing Tupac's intentions. In an interview with Cole, Quincy mentioned that Tupac had discussed leaving Death Row Records to sign with his label. She talked about her first encounter with Death Row, presented by MC Hammer when she met the label's co-founders Tupac and Suge Knight. Despite Tupac's tragic death, there remains much speculation about Quincy's role in the lives of young musicians. Tupac urged Cole to leave Death Row on the day he was shot in Las Vegas. After figures like Diddy and Quincy became influential in establishing personal relationships in the industry, Will Smith was reportedly following in their footsteps. Given that Quincy belongs to a different generation than Will and Tupac, he may have influenced them on this matter. Quincy, now 91 years old, has revealed secrets in interviews about various celebrities, including the Beatles and Michael Jackson. He mentioned notable figures who identified as LGBT, including Marvin Gaye, Richard Pryor, and James Baldwin. Quincy is associated with several cults and organizations, in addition to advising a large number of black musicians. Professor Griff has publicly accused Quincy of being involved with underground gay networks in Hollywood. Griff is a conspiracy theorist who has dispelled long-standing myths by exposing previously unknown truths about Quincy's actions. What do you think about Quincy Jones and the rumors surrounding him? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more interesting updates. Thank you, and see you in the next video.